Welcome to Legacy Conversations, a channel where we preserve military memories and history.
Hello, Internet. I'm excited today for a couple of reasons. I'm speaking to a very fascinating man. We have something in common with Douglas Bader, and I have actually given everything away, just saying that. But you do know him. You've seen him before in our episode of Curamus, which if you haven't seen that episode, please take the time to go and look at it, and I'm sure that will come up in our conversation again. We decided we're going to start in English and we might switch to Afrikaans here and there, or we may not. We'll see how life goes. If I look a bit strange to you and I look a bit more sleepy than usual, please forgive me. I had some allergic reaction last night and the whole side of my lip started swelling up, and I'm still under the influence of those pills to try and get me back to normal. It might affect my speech as well, and I speak more incomprehensible than usual. But anyway, let me welcome our guest then. But before we do that, let's just look at a short break of a sponsor of this episode. I've been asked by many people how they can assist the channel. Now, there are various ways. For now, I want to speak about the Patreons. You can join the Patreons where you support us by donating $5 a month. If you want to do more than $5, of course, you're welcome. But $5 is the minimum. And it's completely free in the sense that if you don't want to carry on with it, you just cancel your subscription and then the $5 will not be deducted from you anymore. Now, what you get out of it from the Patreons is you see many of the videos you see first, and you have direct access to me. So if you want to talk to me or you have ideas or you want to just meet somebody who I have access to, normally through the patrons, we will definitely bend backwards to assist. So it's a good cause because we need the money to pay for the internet, for equipment, for fuel. When I was in South Africa recently, we drove almost 10,000 kilometers to record all the different museums and aircraft and people and armored vehicles and things like that. And the Patreons are the one who is paying for the fuel by making their donations. Now, there's 100,000 people a month who come to Legacy. They watch on average 30,000 hours, between 25 and 34,000 hours a month for videos, and out of that 100,000, only 50 people, as I speak here now, which is January 2025, is willing to give us $5. So if you have $5, please go to the link. You can find it everywhere underneath videos. You can also find it under this video. Go to Patreon, sign up, and let me see you in there at Patreons. Thank you for listening, and let's get back to the video. We're speaking here today to Major Tinus van Jaarsveld. And I can tell you, when I did his business card, I was quite unsure how to spell the Tinus, whether it's with a H or not, but it seems it's without. And van Jaarsveld, of course, you can spell in different ways as well, with a T and a D and a D and a T, but it seems it's only a D here. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Sir, you're so welcome here. Thank you. Thank you for coming to Legacy. I'm really excited to hear your story. May I ask you, where did this start for you? How did you end up in the SAAF? How did you lose your leg? Then you started flying helicopters, and I think perhaps your parents were involved as pilots or in the military anyway. But please tell us, we're listening.
Morning, Koos. Yes. Like I told you in the beginning, or before we started, my English teacher, Mr. De Priya, at high school, told me that my English, although I passed the matric, was for private use only. But let's see how it goes. Okay. I was born in Bronkhorstspruit in 1957. Went to school in White River, That's where I started my primary school. In standard 3, we moved to Pretoria. I was in Menlo Park Primary School. I was in Linwood Primary School. And then the last 2 terms, I went to Boksburg and I was in Baanbreker Primary School. From there, I went to high school in Boksburg, and I ended up in Delmas, doing standard 8, 9 and matric in Delmas. Okay. I was fortunate there when I was in standard 9, we won the Administrators Cup, a small school. Yes, okay, when I finished my school, there wasn't money to go to university. My elder brother went, but for me, there wasn't enough money. My dad was a Sergeant Major as a Lutelam. I can't remember what that was in English. And he said to me, well, the army is a nice place. So I started my national service in 1975 at the Gunners. From there, I went to 4th Field Regiment in Potchefstroom. From there, I went to the School of Artillery, the jails there, and I enjoyed it. And I wanted to go to the military academy because I wanted to study. With my national service, talking to some of the people, they suggested, why don't you join permanent force and then go to the military academy? And that's what I did. But I decided that the blue of the Air Force was a better color than the brown of the Army. And that's why I joined the Air Force. So I'm not one of those guys that said, from the day I could remember, I saw an airplane flying overhead, and that's when I became a pilot, or decided I wanted to become a pilot. So I joined permanent force. Unfortunately, my matric results was not good enough to go to the military academy. And while I was at 11th Squadron as an ops clerk, the guy said to me, why don't you apply for pilot's course? Which I did, went through the normal selection, and I started my pupil pilot's course, one of 76, in April of 1976. We got our wings on the 30th of June, 1977, and we received our wings from General Dutton. He was an Army general, but his son was on Pups course with us. From there, we did officers forming at SAAF College. That was one of the funny things. We were trained as pilots, and now they try to train some of the guys to become officers. They changed it a while after that because some of the guys just didn't want to do anything but use their flying training and go somewhere else. After officers forming, I went to 27th Squadron. I was fortunate in that I never asked for 27th Squadron. I just want to mention some of the guys that I've worked with at 27th Squadron. Captain Bob Streever, he flew Spitfires in the war, and then there was a Major John Chinnery. People that had an influence on my career. Also, Storm, Neil Bester, and then there's Lynch. You'll see why I mentioned some of these names. While I was at 27th Squadron, unfortunately, on the 20th of February 1978, I landed Albatross 881, wheels up, at DF Malanda, now Cape Town International. General James Creel was a colonel, base commander at Air Force Base Eysterplaat at that stage. Him and Commandant Mickey Lamb, flying. They really supported me, and I thought I was going to go to fixed undercarriage aircraft, which they did with most of the people when they did wheels up approaches or especially landings. I was mocked quite a long time about that until I decided I have to use this to my own advantage. And when people started talking about, oh, you did a wheels up, I would say to them, yes, I've got experience that you don't even want. Yeah, I'm a bit emotional about it, but okay. I'll come by now. While I was at 27th Squadron, the 27th Squadron guys did the bush tours at Eros, flying the Aztec, and there was a Queen Air that we flew as well. So I went up there. Commandant Potty that used to do the conversions, he wasn't available, he was sick. Trevor Schroeder was flying the Aztec at that stage. He was an instructor. And he told Gordon Roberts, who was the allo pilot at Eros at that stage, to make sure that I get the handbooks for the Aztec so I can study and so you can do my conversion. Gordon Roberts looked around in the hangar there at Eros and he said to me, sorry, I can't find the books. Let's go to the pub. So that was the start of my Aztec conversion. That went well. I went back to 27th Squadron, but I was picked to go to instructor course. But I think I wasn't emotionally ready for that. So it was tough, the instructor's course. And at that stage, my dad had his own business and he needed help. So I left for 2 years, 1918 and 1981. I was not in the Air Force. I did get my commercial pilot license for airplanes, but the work outside was not to my liking, and I missed the Air Force. So, middle of December 1981, I rejoined. I was posted to 19th Squadron, waiting for the rotary wing conversion to start. While I was there, one night in the pub, I met Gordon Roberts again. He, at that stage, was working at 21 Squadron as an ops planner, if I'm not mistaken. And he said to me, 21 Squadron is looking for pilots. So I said to him, well, I wouldn't mind going there. And he said, well, you'll speak to the officer commanding, which was General George van Jaarsveld. Some of these guys that I mentioned might have been brigadiers, but I mean, it's generals now. And some of them are not live anymore, so it's not disrespect. That's my story that I have to tell. Okay. Apparently, George van Jaarsveld contacted headquarters and said he would like them to transfer me to 21 Squadron. I was told that by somebody, and I wasn't supposed to know that. A few days later, I was summoned to SAAF HQ. The phone call was, you have to come and see us. And I said, I'm not going to mention name. Why is it? Is it in connection with my transfer? Yes. So I was quite happy. I thought I was going to 21 Squadron. I got to Air Force headquarters, and for 3 hours, I went from one office to the other office, being, I don't know how to say that, cracked out. Okay, how can you organize yourself a transfer to 21 Squadron? I said, but I never did that. All I did was I had an interview with, at that stage, Colonel George van Jaarsveld. The one commandant at Air Force headquarters said to me, have you ever flown twins? And I said to him, yes, I flew Aztecs, the Albatros and Aztecs. And he said, no, if you haven't flown DAX, you haven't flown twins. So that was it. And I was posted, but not to 21 Squadron. It was to Tactical Support Command at that stage. I had to go and report to Commandant Koen Breed. What a nice man. They were in the final stages of the planning and going down to Durban to deploy 96 TAU, the Tactical Airfield Unit. That was the first one that was deployed at Koos. All right, so we did that. When I was finished with that, end of middle of March 82, I was then posted to 44 Squadron. He wanted to fly 21, so now you can go and fly DAX. So I did my technical at 44 Squadron. Then in mid-May of 82, Commandant Jan Delpoort was promoted. Well, he was appointed as the officer commanding at 25 Squadron already. It was an unwritten rule that you had to be an instructor to be a squadron commander. So he did his instructor's course, but it's a long story. When you do instructor's course, you become a temporary CCAT instructor. Then you have to give adequate instruction, and it was normally used that you get 2 students, and if you send one of the 2 solo, you become a C category instructor. But he did the instructor's course. He was the officer commanding of 25 Squadron already, so he went to the squadron, and I was posted to 25 Squadron to go and do my attack conversion there, and not in Bloom like everybody else. And I was told that he must send me solo, then he can become his, he will get his confirmed C category instructor's rating. I did that. Back into 44 Squadron flying DAX. And in the beginning of 1983, again, there was word that 21 Squadron was looking for pilots. So I thought, well, now I've flown DAX as well. I'm going to see if I can't go back there or go to 21 Squadron. It was a week or so discussed or talked about in the crew rooms at 44 Squadron. And then the next minute was no, 44 Squadron doesn't need pilots at the moment. And so in April 1983, I was posted to SAAF College. Now, I must point out to you that there's a saying, you can make your plans, but do it in pencil. But give the pen to God. So, yes, I was a directing staff member at Air Force College. I must just tell you that the guy that went to 21 Squadron, while I was at the college now, he was killed in a mid-air collision with a Merlin. So, could have been me. After my stint at the college, it was supposed to be 2 years, but at the end of 1983, I was transferred to CFS the Notter again for instructor's course. Started at the Notter, had to come do the residential phase of the junior command and staff course. Junior command and staff, now hang on. That was the JOA, Junior Officers Administrators Course. Okay. So I finished instructor's course, and in June 85, I was posted to 84 Light Aircraft Flying School in Potchefstroom. Just one thing about the Notter, when I finished my instructor's course, well, my stint there, I heard that I was going to be posted to Potchefstroom, and I went to the chief instructor and I said to him, I'd love it at the Notter. I've asked for an extended tour, and he said to me, no, you won't be posted to Potch. 2 weeks later, the signal came out and I was transferred to Potch. Again, I enjoyed my time at Potchefstroom very much. Cessna 185 was a nice aircraft. In September of 87, while I was there, I did the maintenance test pilots course. I became head of testing and assessing at Potchefstroom at the flight school. And then at the end of September 87, I was posted to Rundu and Mavinga. This is where the big story starts. On the 19th of December in 87, we were all floating a C-160 at night. Now, let me tell you, I can't remember anything. The last thing I remember is I did a runway inspection at about 6:30 that evening. I told the telecom people to inform Rundu that the runway is fine, that they can send the aircraft. The accident happened at about 1 o'clock on the 19th of December. Like I said, I can't remember anything about the accident. I can remember certain things that happened afterwards that I can talk about if you want me to. But the accident was quite bad. I was loaded into that C-160, flown to Rundu. There was an orthopedic surgeon. He was the head of the medical school at University of Wits. In the theatre that night, he had a look at me, amputated my leg, stabilized me, and the next morning they used the King Air to Kazavac back to Waterkloof. Now, the captain of the aircraft, the King Air, was Herman Abig. He was on Peeps course with me. And, sorry, he said to me, I spoke to him long after that, and in the last 2 weeks as well. He said to me that when he boarded the aircraft, he said to the medics, what are my chances? And they said to him, 50% if I make it. Sorry. Another thing, about 2 weeks ago, somebody contacted me. His name is Glenn. He wrote a book. It's not been published yet. But I want you to just to show you what happened to me. He was on his way back from Rundu to after his bush tour. He was an ops clerk or intelligence clerk, and he asked Herman, the captain of the aircraft, whether he can catch a lift, and Herman told him yes. Go and get your stuff. We're leaving in 15 minutes. And I'm just going to read what is in his book. He says, putting myself into the plane, I took a seat near our military chaplain. I knew him to be a likable, down-to-earth, humble man, but his presence alarmed me. If he was on the plane, the injured military captain may possibly die en route. Sorry. Two medics lifted the captain's stretcher into the plane and placed him on a bed next to me. He was unconscious, and other than underwear, completely exposed. His chest cavity was mangled, torn and broken. His entire body bruised, every conceivable color. His head was the size of a basketball, and he had blood coming out of his ears and nose. His eyes were so swollen, they resembled tennis balls gaping from his head. The bandage where the man's leg had been amputated was crimson. The medics seated themselves beside me, using a portable respiratory device to keep him alive, and we taxied to the runway. As we taxied to the runway, I asked, how is he doing? The senior medic glanced up. If he lives, he'll be a vegetable, he said, and returned his attention to his work. I glanced at the chaplain behind me. He shook his head. The plane was full of negativity, of the sense this man is not going to make it. But he was fighting for his life. And he was reaching out to me. Okay, now, let me just gather myself here. Glenn contacted me, and he said he read a book, and that assisted him with his spiritual life. So that's where this comes from, and he felt connected to me. Herman also said that I had about 4 or 5 drips into my body, but what he can remember is there were 16 bags with fluid going into my body. Okay. So, like I said, that was at 1 o'clock on the 19th of December. Before 12 o'clock that afternoon, I was in ICU in one more. The afternoon of the 23rd of December was the next thing that I can remember, apart from that runway inspection that I did on the 18th. That was my family. They were in the room in one military hospital. From there, I was in the hospital room, and one day, not long after that, the ward sister came into my room, followed by a senior man. I can't remember his name, and she said to me, "Can I introduce you to our chief surgeon at One Mil?" And she said to him, and this is Captain van Jaarsveld. He said, "Yeah, now we know each other." And I thought, you mistaken. I haven't seen you before. And he sat down and started talking to me, and he said to me, "I just want to get the story again so I can make notes to go with the pictures." I said to him, "What pictures?" And he gave me slides, and I had a look at the slides, and I said, "But that's me. Where did you get it?" He said, "No, I took it while you were in ICU." So I told him the story the way I had it, and that was one thing that I can tell you. At Mavinga, I made sure the pilots, if they landed there and they wanted coffee, there were coffee for them. I never got into an aircraft without permission or without being asked to be there. And what I told him was they had a problem with the freight inside the C-130, C-160, and they asked me to come and assist. I did that, and yes, I was apparently on top of the one pallet when they started moving or taxiing forward. Now, when I finished that, he said to me, "Are you sure you can't remember me?" I said, "No." He said, "But that's funny because the story you've just told me is exactly what you told me while you were in ICU." Now, apparently, I spoke to some of the doctors and the nurses, and even my late wife in ICU, but that I can't remember either. I just said, "Yeah, I've got that now." While I was in the hospital in One Mil, General Rogers was the chief of the Air Force. Him and General van Lochenberg visited me, and they said they will do everything they can to get me back in the cockpit. So I spent 2 months in One Mil. The second month was basically just a hotel room because I had to do rehabilitation at the old One Mil. So I stayed here in the mornings. There was a bus going to old One Mil, did rehabilitation, came back. I must tell you, that's another story. Those physiotherapists, they have no mercy on anybody. But that's a story for another day. Back at Potch, stayed there, and while I was there, July to mid-September, I did the junior command and staff course at Air Force College. And then in October 1988, General Lynch, he was the officer commanding at Eysterplaat at that stage, contacted the base OC at Potch and said they must offer me the post of base ops operations officer at Eysterplaat, which after discussing it with my late wife, we accepted it and we were posted down to Eysterplaat. While I was there, General Lynch, every time he saw me on the base somewhere, he said to me, "Aren't you flying yet? Aren't you flying yet?" And I said to him, "Colonel, you know the rules. I've been medically grounded." And he says, "No, those are just guidelines. We must try and fly." In March 1990, the Deputy Minister of Defense at that stage announced in Parliament Curamus. And I mean, it's because this assisted me, and I think I assisted General Knobel in this project. The project was to acknowledge that they've got injured soldiers, and it was to ensure that the injured soldiers are being looked after. General Knobel said, I don't just want to give the guy a job. I want to give him a career. um, Chief of the South African Defence Force at that stage appointed General Knobel with the Surgeon General as the planner, coordinator, and the main man for the project. Okay, the project entailed many aspects. The big thing was the multidisciplinary team. Some of them, like the medics that were on board with me, they knew what they were doing. The surgeons and medical staff, a lot of them were up to scratch. Psychologists, everybody was involved. The chaplain services were involved. So that was the idea. And part of the project was the statue that is erected in front of one military hospital, the Curamus statue. That is for the security people living with disabilities. Another part of the project was the Curamus Association. General Knobel had the idea that there must be an association run by the guys who the association is for. So everybody that is involved in the management of Curamus are disabled. No, not disabled. They say we're very able. We're differently disabled, or we're living with a disability. That's all. So on the 20th of October 1990, a lot of the injured soldiers were flown to Pretoria, and the Curamus Association was established on the 20th of October. The next day, the statue was unveiled. Now, General Lynch, like I said, he pressured me, and are you flying? Are you flying? And then General Knobel, one day got stranded at Easterplaat because of weather. He went there, and the aircraft that he was supposed to be catching was at DF Milan, Cape Town International Airport. And there I spoke to him quite a bit, and he realized that he must assist me to get back into the cockpit, because that would prove his dream for Curamus. The guy's still got a career. So on the 20th of August, 1991, I was posted to 87 Helicopter Flying School. There was a lot of fighting at Air Force headquarters, and I don't know where else. I know General Knobel was involved in that. So General Payne and Koos Meiberg was my instructor at 87 Helicopter Flying School, teaching a guy with a prosthesis to fly. General Payne was the commandant. He was the officer commanding of 87 Helicopter Flying School. And Major General van Loffenberg, at that stage, he was Chief of the Air Force. He must have known it and must have given permission for me to fly again. But I know there were senior officers at Air Force headquarters that wasn't very happy about that. On the 17th of September 1991, General Payne did my solo check, and he sent me solo on the Alouette 3. Later that year, with the farewell trip of General van Loffenberg, we were standing in the hangar, and he looked at me and he said to me, "Who are you?" I mentioned that because that was some of the stuff that is not good for people with injuries. He said he was going to do everything in his power to get me back in the cockpit. Now I am flying, and he didn't know who I was. Yeah, okay. Fortunately, General James Kriel took over. He was a helicopter pilot, as you know. And part of this Curamus project, we got permission, not myself, but people involved, from General Kriel to, at the passing out parade, the helicopter conversion course, General Knobel and Commandant Down Dalerai, he was in charge of Curamus at that stage. I visited the base. General Knubel was the reviewing officer that I was passing out, and I actually took them for a flip in an hour. Now the idea was to to do the allo or the helicopter conversion, rotary conversion course. Let me use the correct terms. Because it doesn't have foot brakes. The Alouette doesn't have foot brakes. And obviously with the prosthesis, the ankle is stiff, so I can't apply brakes on the left-hand side. But the idea was to do the rotary conversion, and then just after that, we do the operational conversion course and stay on Alouettes. But like I said, some of the senior guys at Air Force headquarters, they weren't happy about me flying. Why, I don't know. I can guess, but I don't know. I won't say anything. So they said, no, they're not making any exceptions for anybody. I have to go and do the Puma conversion. So on 7th of January, I started at Air Force Base Swartkops. Then it was 17th Squadron. And I finished the Puma conversion on the 23rd of February 1992. Thereafter, I was posted to 22 Squadron because I was from Easterplaat, and it was arranged that once I've done the flying courses, I would fly at 22 Squadron. While I was at 22, again, enjoyed my time. I was chosen to be the co-pilot when we went to the chopper competition that year in Bloem. And Kevin Kaplan was the commander. I was a co-pilot, and Schalk Free flew the Alouette 3. Unfortunately, I can't remember the engineers who were involved, but I think there's a picture with their names. And we won the competition. Yeah, that was not the end of my flying problems. Commandant Mani Gelnys was officer commanding at 22 Squadron at that stage. And the third time he returned from Victoria after an officer commanding conference, and he told me that, again, the people at headquarters says, you cannot get command in a Puma from the left-hand seat. I think that broke the fight to continue flying. And in September of 93, there was a staff post at Training Command, SAAF Training Command, and I was posted there as SA2 flying training. So that was the flying after the accident. Now, just in short, that I finished my career, was from Training Command. I saw that was also part of the strategy that SAAF Training Command was going to be closed. So I volunteered to go to SAAF College, to the Junior Command and Staff Wing as a DS. And for in 1998, I worked there. End of 1998, I left the SAAF. I worked at the South African Civil Aviation Authority for 5 years. The last year that I was there, I was head of operations, the Part 127 helicopters. Thereafter, I thought I'll go on my own, try to be an aviation consultant. Obviously, that didn't work because I didn't have the support from the CIA that was required at that stage. Then I at NAC for 2 years, not flying, in a ground post. Let me just leave it like that. Thereafter, I went to MCC Aviation from August 2007, and in June 2020, with COVID and a mutual agreement, I went on earlier retirement. Okay, so I was sitting at home. I'm still a member of the Curamus Association, and the directors approached me to come and assist them in running or assisting to them with the Curamus Association when Koos passed away. I just wanted to mention to you that yes, I am a Christian. I think that helped me. And like I said, you use the pen, you can use the pencil. I talked about my late wife. While I was at Easterplant, she was diagnosed with cancer. And 3 years later, at the age of 40, she died. So the Lord dealt cards, but I'm still here. There must be a reason for that. And that's my story. I don't know whether you want me to say more or elaborate on something.
I just want to sympathize with the loss of your wife. I have some experience, very unwanted experience in that area. But I need to just to fill a few gaps, if you don't mind, sir. That night when you got injured, I believe you were at Mavinga. Now, I'm sure there's people here who don't know what Mavinga is and what is meant by Mavinga. Perhaps you can just tell us why was the SAAF flying cargo loads at very, very low level towards Mavinga during that time?
Okay, Koos, at that stage, operations, Hooper, Packer, and a modular, I can't remember which the sequence they ran, were very active. And Mavinga was the airfield closest to where Jonas Savimbi was, and that was in the eastern side of Angola, still fairly safe for operations. Not during the day, but for nighttime operations. And that's why they used that airfield to fly in. It wasn't only freight and ammunition, it was troops as well.
Yes, I've heard about a lot of people being loaded in a C-150 once to go and reinforce. I mean, they're talking about more than 200 people loaded into a C-150, which is not the same as a C-160. So they were taking operational risks, I suppose, and that brings me back just to the terminology, because again, I'm not sure that people understand the different terminology. What would be the difference between a commercial pilot and a military pilot?
In which sense? Because a commercial pilot is trained for commercial aircraft. They doing civilian flying. A military pilot is trained for his military operations. And yes, in the military, we have at different standards. I can remember the Dakota, for instance, the max all-up weight was 26,200 or something like that, 26,200 pounds. But we had a military overload of 28,000 pounds. So we could overload the aircraft in a sense where the civilian guys had to stick to the rules. My role at Mavinga that night, let me just clarify that, was I was the leader of the mobile operations team, MLOS, Mobile Air Operations Team, Mobiele Lugoperasies Span. And I was basically in charge of the airfield to make sure that it is clear and it could be used by our SAAF aircraft.
Okay, I understand. So this is like not a formal airport almost. It's more like a runway, I suppose, and it's lit up at night with very primitive type of lighting. And then these big transports come in and they just land and they offload as quickly as possible and they leave. It is that simple. As I understand it, that there were, of course, nothing simple about the operations. If I summarized it correctly, I don't want to put words into people's mouths.
Yes, it was just a runway. It had a turning area at the end, the hard stand. And what we did at night is we had canisters from the army ammunition. I can't remember which one it was, which we filled with the helicopter fuel from the drums, because we didn't empty the drums completely. And we used that with a wig. And there were people stationed next to the runway. And then when the aircraft was near, I would give the command, and then they would light those, let's call them paraffin lampen, okay, which indicated the flare path. And the pilots used that, landed, and obviously with the wind of the aircraft going past, once the aircraft was on the ground, the flare path was extinguished as well. So they just turned, and we had a generator with spotlights at the hard stand for the offloading.
Yeah, this is real James Bond stuff almost. But there's something which puzzles me. I mean, I've always been told that it's a lot harder to fly a helicopter than a fixed-wing aircraft. And I don't want to start a fight between the two species, because I'm not sure they mix well. But we all know about hovering is God gift or something. They were saying in the SAAF, divine. It's divine. But why would they have, when you got to flying again, take you to a helicopter? I mean, would it not have been easier to go back to a fixed-wing Cessna or something, or perhaps one with a co-pilot, like the Dakota? It seems to me it is a harder test than it could have been, or am I wrong?
Because like I explained, with the prosthesis, your ankle is stiff. And with an aircraft, well, the Puma's got brakes as well. And to apply brakes, you need your ankles. And with the stiff ankle on the left-hand side, when you apply brakes, all aircraft, well, I can't say all aircraft, but most of them's independent braking. So if you apply right hand, you turn to the right because your right wheels are braking, and the same to the left. And that's why the Alouette without brakes was the better choice, because I could still apply rudder left and right. And that was one of the problems when I came to 17 Squadron for the Puma conversion, is I said to them, listen, if I sit in the seat, I can put my feet on the pedals without applying brakes. But the moment I apply the right rudder, yaw pedal, the left one comes back, and with a stiff ankle, the toe is now touching the top. So if I try to correct that now, or turn back to the left, it's going to apply brakes. And with that, they said to me, well, then you have to do your whole conversion from the left-hand seat, which I did. Why they then, 22 Squadron, said to me, I can't get command from the left-hand seat, that puzzled me. I don't know.
It is, in fact, a little bit weird, because what I've learned from speaking to pilots is that when you're in a fixed-wing aircraft and you're in the left seat, you are almost certainly the command pilot. Not to say you are, but most certainly that's where the captain would sit. But it's the opposite in a helicopter.
Yes, in aeroplanes, the commander sits on the left-hand side. In helicopters, the commander sits on the right-hand side. It's got to do with the controls and safety, especially with the collective. But an instructor, when he gets into a Puma with a student that's never flown a Puma, he sits on the left-hand side, and he's the commander of the aircraft. So you can control the movement of the helicopter with power. And that's how we stop an Alouette. I mean, it doesn't have brakes. It's got a park brake, but you taxi, and then you stop it where you want, and then you just apply the park brake. So, like I said, why they decided to say to me, I cannot get command from the left-hand seat, I don't know, because the instructor is sitting in the left-hand seat, and he's the commander.
Yeah, it makes no sense, there's somebody who made a silly decision somewhere. But I have to ask you, when you first get into a cockpit again after your accident, is there excitement or a loss of confidence or what goes through a man's head when you're sitting there and it's somehow familiar, but on the other hand, it's been some time.
Because I was the base ops officer at Easter Flight at that stage, and when they decided, yes, I might be able to go back to flying, I had to do a flight test with one of the instructors in an Alouette. The wind was too strong that day. I couldn't do hover turns, but I had to turn 90 degrees with the wind one side and 90 degrees with the wind to the other side to prove that I can control the yaw pedals. Another thing I just want to mention is you asked me, isn't it difficult for helicopter? I can ride a bicycle, but if you say to me, is it difficult to ride a one-wheeler, I'd say it's impossible for me. But there are people that can do it, and that's the same with an aircraft. Once you are taught how to fly it, you get used to it, and it becomes natural.
Yeah, which brings me to the old question: is there such a thing as a born pilot?
I think so. I think so. I think there's some guys that you look at him and you think pilot. I don't think so. And then a few years later, you realize that that guy's got abilities that a lot of other pilots don't have. Naturally, the other guys gets taught that. But having said that, there's that one saying that says, when you're a superior pilot, you use your superior knowledge to avoid situations where you have to use your superior skills. And that is so true. And to come back to your question of back in the cockpit, yeah, you got 6 main instruments in an aircraft, and then all the rest are for engines and whatever extra. The rotor revs is, you've heard that term, you keep up the revs fella, for the chopper guys. Rotor revs is very important. So that's a gauge that you have to get used to. But I mean, once you started flying, I won't say it's easy because you have to concentrate all the time. But yeah, it's not so difficult. It's like if you ask a 4-year-old kid, it's difficult to ride a bicycle. He's going to say to you, it's impossible. Teach him, and 2 months later, he can ride the bicycle. He's going to say, no, it's easy. So, that's the way I compare it all the time.
Now I have to ask you, where when you people won that administrative cup, which I think is a rugby beker cup, and quite well, tell me about it. Were you playing in that team? And if so,
Okay,
what?
Yeah, that's also a very nice story. Hoërskool Damas High School at that stage had about, speak on a correction, but I think it was 468 pupils total in school. And in those years, all the high schools in the Transvaal competed for the Administrators Cup. Nowadays, well, it eventually changed to the Beeld Trophy or something like that. I can't remember. And then it was big schools and medium schools and small schools and things like that. In 1973, we had, like I said, 400 and odd kids in the school. And our semi-final, we played against Help Mekaar at Ellis Park. And they had more boys playing rugby than we had pupils in the school. So, and then after that, the final was played in Petersburg against Tom Nudia. And there's a newspaper clip that says on that day, there was only one guy left in Delmas, and that was the sergeant in the charge office because he had to work. He wasn't allowed to go to Petersburg. The whole of Delmas was there.
And you played in that game?
Yeah. Well, with so few kids in the school. Yeah, I did. I played 5. Oh, yeah. And once again, it's the Lord. You know, he takes you to places.
Yeah, I think when you're lying there in your bed at 1 mil and you realize you lost your leg, yeah, I think you must have felt that the Lord is close by, or you really need Him, or there's people who will laugh at the chaplains and think they are not necessary, but I think in certain circumstances, a good chaplain is worth his weight in gold.
Yeah. I know that when I first spoke to the people that on the 23rd of December in my room, the first thing they said to me, "How are you?" And I said to them, "I know I lost my leg." And it was almost natural for me. That's me. Yeah, there was higher powers that assisted me. Because I just want to say before I get into trouble, no, I won't get into trouble, but I remarried. Myself and Nancy has now been together since 2000. So I had somebody looking after me as well. Although my late wife, she really supported me while I was in hospital. The kids was 11 and 14 when Anli passed away. So I was assisted. My parents and obviously Ansi helped me with the kids.
But it is, as we said when we were making the Curamus episode, is that you're not less than a person. You're still the same. You just don't have that leg anymore. And I must tell you guys a story when we recorded Curamus. I arrived there with a huge backpack full of cameras and stuff and nonsense and tripods, and we all sort of gear up in. And so this fellow here across me with one leg just grabs that tripod and he starts running with it. I can understand where this fly off comes from now. And I actually struggle to keep up. So there's nothing wrong with your movement. You move as well as ever. And you're still the same man. That's a point I'm trying to make. The fact that you have a disability doesn't make you not human anymore.
No, Koos, that's very true. And that was and still is one of Curamus's main objectives, is to say to the guy, listen, you've lost a limb, or there's something wrong with you that you're not as people perceive to be normal, but you're still the same person you are. I mean, that medic said to the chap that flew in the King Air, he said, if I make it, I'll be a vegetable. Okay. I'm one of the few pilots that's got a certificate that says my brain is okay, because I had to get that before they would allow me to fly again. So, well, it was then. I don't know whether it's still okay, the brain, but yeah.
Ja, ek dink hier teen die einde moet ons al net iets in Afrikaans sê. Julle weer is interessant, die res van julle ouens het net regsvermoede dat julle brein alright is. Dis min mense wat eintlik 'n stuk papier het wat kan sê hy's reg, is 'n groot ding. Maar as jy nou terugkyk na die loopbaan en die lewe en die ervaring, het jy enige raad vir enige iemand hierso, miskien 'n veteraan wat en ook weet seer gekry het in die proses, en dis nie net altyd 'n fisiese seer kry nie. Baie van die manne sit met geweldige kopprobleme, en ek sê dit op 'n mooi manier. Ek hou nie van daai woord bos, jy weet, bosbevark nie. Ek spreek hom nou 'n bietjie anders uit. Die feit van die saak is, wanneer 'n ou gaan deur iets wat so traumaties is daar noodwendige effek op jou. Het jy enige advies vir iemand hierso?
Dus ja, ek dink nie ek moet uit my eie kennis uitpraat nie. Ek kan vir jou sê, hulle kan maar een militêre hospitaal kontak, hulle sal neergesit word na die Curamus kantoor toe, en dan kan ons kyk, hoe en waar kan ons help. Want as jy 'n oogprobleem het, dan kan ek jou na 'n oogarts toe vat. As jy oorprobleme het, kan ek jou na 'n oorarts toe vat en 'n tandarts. Maar sielkundig is moeilik om te weet wanneer, wat, waar en hoe. Maar ons kan kyk hoe kan ons help. Curamus werk nou saam met die Raad van Militêre Veterane Organisasies, waar meeste van die militêre veterane organisasies geaffilieer is. So, en ons is nou deur hulle besig om te kyk of ons Curamus kan verder uitbrei en almal weer betrokke kry.
Ja, nee, so, julle ouens moet werklik kyk na daai episode. Hierdie was my 'n fantastiese storie om te hoor, maar ek het wel 'n laaste vraag. Daar's 'n foto waar jy staan in so oranje oorpak en jy staan voor 'n Puma. Weet nie wat se model nie, maar die ding het sulke, lyk of hy oor die water gevlieg het, sulke airbags rondom hom.
Ja.
Nou is dit nie 'n nekry as 'n ou dan vlieg met een been hierbo so iets en jy, ek meen, as iets verkeerd loop met daai helikopter en jy moet daar uit en begin swem en nou het net een been. Gaan so iets deur 'n man se kop of is dit nie daar nie?
Koos, jy het net al gesê, toe jy gehelp het met jou kind hier by die monument, die ou met een been. Ek het twee bene. Die een is net bionies, maar hy is nie so bionies as wat die mense dink. Maar ek loop, ja, ek is van al 37 jaar, so ek loop redelik normaal. Die Puma, dis flotation gear, is die Engelse term, flotasie uitrusting wat op die vliegtuig gesit word, dat as jy in die water beland, dat die vliegtuig nie sink nie, so hy hou hom bo, dat jy kan uitkom. En swem, ja, as ek in die water moes val, sou ek hierdie prosthesis so vinnig as moontlik afgehaal het, want dis net ekstra gewig wat nie veel werk nie, so, en hoofsaaklik maar net met die arms en die een been geswem het. Ja, dit het my nooit bekommer.
Is daar iets soos, wat sê hulle nou in Engels, ek probeer dit nou terugvertaal na Afrikaans, 'n bold en 'n old pilot, of van die twee nie saam nie. Jy weet, dit is maar beter om versigtig te wees daarbo.
This is I spreekwoord wat ek net te veel gesê. Superior pilot uses his superior knowledge to avoid situations where he requires his superior skills. En dit. Ja, ek meen die laagvlieg rekord sal nooit gebreek word nie, want dis grondvlak. So dit help nie jy probeer laer en laer nie. Ek is ou wat ek hou nie van lugskoue nie. Ek bly weg daar as ek kan. En die vlieëniers wat dink hulle moet 5 voet bo kan die ander baan vlieg. Besef dit nie, dis nie die voorste ry van die mense wat staan en kyk van die toeskouers wat hulle kan sien. Almal agter kan hulle nie sien nie. So as hy op 50 voet of 100 voet selfs vlieg, dan kan meeste mense hom sien. En 50 voet na 20 voet of 10 voet toe, daar's nie so groot verskil nie. Die groot verskil lê dat as iets verkeerd gaan, het jy baie beter kans op 'n hoër hoogte.
Ja, dit is so, dit is, jy weet, ek dink soms dat hierdie lugskoue dwing amper 'n vlieënier om dinge te doen wat onnodig is. Jy weet, ek persoonlik hou van 'n styg op en land en kruitval. Dis die doel van die oefening hierso, om te begin speel daarbo. Ek weet nie, ek onthou my oorlede vrou op 'n stadium wou sy my vat op 'n F-18. Nee, ek lieg, 'n F-14, die Tomcat. En ek moes 'n konversiekurs doen by die vloot om agterin te kan sit. Nou, dit het nooit gebeur nie, ons het net gepraat daaroor. Maar as hy so onheilige kyk in haar oë gekry elke keer as hy dit genoem het, en hy het die gevoel gekry as hy my eers daar vasgemaak het, van ons agterkom, vinnig daai ding in sirkels kan vlieg onderste bo of iets. Dis nie vir almal nie, is dit? Ek bedoel, jy word toch gebore as 'n, ek wil amper sê, 'n ou wat hou van hierdie tipe dinge, en dan so ouens wat dit slegs doen om te wys hulle kan dit doen, in 'n noodgeval. maar die res van die tyd hou hulle by die reëls.
Koos, ons in die lugmag het die kunsvlieg gebruik om jou vliegvermoë te verbeter. Dit was eenvoudige bewegings, dit was nie ruk en pluk nie. Ja, van die Mirage ouens het hier op die stadium aan het leer gewys, dan kan hulle 8-punt rol doen in 2 sekondes, jy weet. Maar ja, dis seker omdat hulle kan, maar hulle doen dit dan teen hoë spoed. Ek het terwyl ek uit die lugmag uit nou was in die siviele sektor, het ek eendag saam met 'n ou in 'n pit special gaan vlieg. En hulle manier van vlieg is, jy's afgelyk en dan die volgende oomblik is jy vertikaal of weggelyk of onderste bo. Dis 'n ruk en pluk en ek het vir hom na die tyd gesê, dankie, maar nee, dankie nie weer nie. Ons het die vliegtuig gevlieg die hele tyd, ons het hom nie geruk en gepluk.
Ja, ag, weet julle mense, ek sou graag verder wou praat, maar ongelukkig moet ons nou tot op 'n einde kom hier. As daar vrae is, los dit hier onder en ons sal julle probeer antwoord. Ek wil weer eens vir julle op 'n beroep doen, manne, gaan kyk na die Curamus video, ons gaan weer praat met Majoor van Jaarsveld in elk geval, met Curamus soos ons aangaan. Is 'n baie goeie projek. En dit is baie noodsaaklik. Ek dink is noodsaaklik. So as jy vir ons net 'n laaste paar woorde kan sê op die Curamus projek, dan sal ons dit nou maar daar los vir vandag. So ek bedank jy dat jy gekom het en by my skedule kon aanpas wat bietjie verander het en my lip wat nog steeds opgeswel is, ek kan hom voel hier teen my, praat nie natuurlik nie. Dankie vir al dit. So oor na u vir 'n paar laaste woorde.
Wees baie dankie vir die geleentheid. Ja, en jy klink heel alright. Loop lyk van my kant af nie te veel geswel nie. Die Curamus vereniging, ons probeer hom nou te laat herleef. Op hierdie stadium is die enigste groot inkomste wat ons kry is uit die kaartjieverkope wat die weermag ons mee help vir loslid dag, laat ek maar die Engelse terme gebruik, casual day. Dit word gedoen deur die National Council of and for People with Disability. Al die geld gaan na hulle toe en dan gee weer vir ons 'n gedeelte terug. Dis ons grootste inkomste. Ons het nou groot bydrae gekry van generaal Opperman met sy boekverkope wat hy vir Curamus skenk. En dan het ons in die verlede skenkings gekry en dis hoofsaaklik waar ons geld vandaan gekom het. Ons werk aan 'n besigheidsplan om konstante inkomste te kry, dat ons al die skenkings wat vir mense gaan met gestremdhede, veiligheidsmag mense met gestremdhede, dat ons dit vir daai lede kan gee, dat ons nie die besigheids operasionele kostes uit daai gelde uitkry.
Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and ring the bell to receive notifications.
Edited by Fossey. If you'd like to see what he gets up to in his spare time, do please visit his own little YouTube channel, Fossey at Treasure and Treats. Links included below. Your support would be highly appreciated. Help me grow my little channel. Thank you. Dankie. Inkos kakulu. Bye.